Hello guys, my name is Akash Acharya and I want to welcome you all here in this session where we'll be analyzing today's The Hindu newspaper, right? I would like to start the discussion with a simple thing and with a very small problem that students face, right? I'm considering it to be a small problem because we have its solution, okay? So whenever we go out there and talk to the kids, they come up with the argument and they come up with a doubt that how to prepare the notes. Are we expected to jot down things that are given there in the editorial section as well? So let me tell you, you are going through the newspaper on a daily basis to keep yourself updated with what is going around you. So you have to be very well aware of different things that are being asked in your examination. So if you'll have a look at the previous year papers or your mocks, if you'll analyze those, the types of questions that were asked there is your play field. So what you're expected to do is, if you're going through any piece of text and then in that article you find something which is important because it is a fact-based information and not a perspective-based information. So you jot that down in your notebooks. All right, and this is supposed to be done. If you talk about the editorial, we have different purpose behind doing these things. Now if we go out there and ask students, what are you an avid reader or a voracious reader, they reply by saying yes. And when we go out there and ask them what kind of books do you read, so they simply will tell you that we read like the novels from Chetan Bhagat and all other authors like Chetan Bhagat. So if I talk about what is the author's intention while writing that particular book, it was entertainment. And with what purpose you are reading it, that is education. So there is conflict in between these two things. The author has written that particular thing for the purpose of entertaining you, and you are trying to educate yourself by going through that thing. So it won't happen then. Similar thing happens here. If you're going through an editorial, what is an editorial? That article is totally perspective based and sometimes it is fact based. So all those articles which are perspective based, you will have to develop and gain the knowledge from there, gain the perspective. All right, it will help you in developing your own opinion. That is the viability of it being there. But if you talk about how it can be like jotted down in the notebooks, so it is not required for you to jot down each and everything that is written in the newspaper. Okay, so with this discussion, I would like to start the discussion today. Okay, so I've told you that if there are perspective based articles there on the editorial page, so you are not expected to jot down things from there also. All right, you'll have to keep in mind your syllabus, you'll have to keep in mind the types of questions that are being asked in your examination, and then in relevance to that, you have to make the notes. Okay, like for an example, if I start reading this, so this is the first page, and we if we have a look at the first page here, have a look at it. The first news that is there is Joe Biden sworn in delivers message of unity and hope. So it was all about the inauguration ceremony that was held there in the United States yesterday. All right, it was 59th inauguration ceremony, and Joe Biden is the person who has become the 46th president of United States of America. 45th was Donald Trump. 46th is Joe Biden. All right, and the inauguration ceremony, it was 59th inauguration ceremony. If you have a closer look at it, we have certain facts written here. He is 46th president of United States of America. The inauguration ceremony was 59, though it is not that much significant, but yes, it is there. But if you talk about Kamala Devi Harris, so she is the person who is sworn as what, vice president of the United States of America. But what is so interesting in this, what is so important in this, the important fact here is that she is the first women vice president. She is the first African American person or woman who has become the president of the vice president of the United States of America. She is the first Indian American who has become Indian American woman who has become the vice president of United States of America. So these are the facts that are to be kept in your mind. Okay. So if you talk about this particular article relates with these information, these pieces of information, so the information only. So it is talking about the inauguration ceremony that was held there in United States of America. Joe Biden, he's sworn as the president of United States of America. If we talk about the vice president, Kamala Devi Harris is the vice president. She's the first woman to become the vice president in the United States of America. All right. So this was related to the first news that we had. This has its own importance also because we observed that on January 6th there was a group of people who created chaos in the capital. They were Trump supporters. All right, and there has been a lot going on in the U.S. presidential elections. So because of this, finally this day has come where they have now an elected president there. Okay, and this there's no disharmony now. All right, and if it is expected, they are ready to deal with that. So finally, they have come in action. All right, the politician, the president, the vice president, so they are finally there in the office. Okay, so this is something which is important there. The next news that is there is this something which can be considered as a step of progression. All right, if you talk about the case of the farm bills and the farmers association said protesting there around Delhi. All right, so what is happening there? The government specifically has put a stay on three farm bills for the next 18 months. So what they've done, they're saying ki we are putting a stay on these three farm bills for the next 18 months. In between these 18 months, है ना, we will try to convince the farmers. We'll also try and hear the things from them. All right, and we'll try to find a midway in between this duration. So this is some progressive step that has been taken. Okay, because there was a deadlock in the sense both the parties were adamant upon their own opinion and perspectives. So that was the scenario. Now we can say that okay, there is something which we can say is or we can consider as a step taken by the government. What they've done is they've put a stay on these three farm laws for the next 18 months. Okay, after the 18 months they'll decide what to do. In the same row, in the same relevance, there's one more thing, and that is the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of India specifically, they have asked that the police should decide on the parade that the farmers are planning for 26th of January. So on 26th of January, the Farmers Association specifically are planning a parade, a tractor parade, all right? And this issue can affect the law and order situation in Delhi, and that is why the Chief Justice of India has said that this issue should be undertaken by what? The Delhi police. Why? Because this is a law and order issue. Okay, so this is their responsibility. This is the police responsibility to take care of it, and that is why they should decide whether this should happen or not. Okay, so the police officials and the farmers associations now will be in the row of talks so that they can come up with something. All right, so this is about this article. Now, if we'll move further, this can also be a important fact for you guys, because some question can also be asked in a manner where they are saying that the first women vice president of the United States of America belongs to which part of our country? You getting it? So if you're talking about this, that particular state, that particular district, all right, that is Tulasendrapuram. So you should, and the state is Tamil Nadu, no doubt, right? So Tamil Nadu is the state, and the particular district is what? It's Thalusendrapuram. Okay, so you should remember this. Look, we are not supposed to muck up each and everything. You're not expected to remember all the things, and you should not. All right. What you should do is you should jot down things that you find significant in the in the light of your entrance examination, and then keep on revising the facts so that you remember those. This is it. This is the funda. Now there is one more news that is there, and that is about the Niti Aayog when they came up with an index, and that index is India Innovation Index. In that India Innovation Index, this is the second term of it. All right, so this is the second index that is out now, and it that particular index is about the major states category in our country. And when the index is out now, we can observe that Karnataka is the state which is at the top of the table. All right. The second state that is there in the category of major states, and that is Maharashtra, followed by Tamil Nadu. So the first one now is Karnataka. Second is Maharashtra. Third is Tamil Nadu. Again, some question can be asked upon this particular topic as well, and how that question can be created. That question can be created in a manner where they'll ask which is the institution that comes up with India Innovative Index. So you'll have to answer in terms of Niti Aayog. Okay. So this is about the first page there. After the first page, look, there is not that much to like discuss when we talk about all these newses that are there. Okay, because these are those pieces of news which you have already covered in the last sessions, and this is some additional information regarding those. So after this, if we directly move towards the editorial page, there is something which is really important, something which is significant because of the source of it as well. There's this editorial here, removing the creases in housework valuation. I am considering it to be a very important piece of text. Why? Because of the person who has written that. And the person's name is Faizan Mustafa, who is the Vice Chancellor of NALSA. All right. So you must be aware of his name. You must have heard a lot from him. All right. When the consortium came up with some different format and different version of the examination, all were confused. And then Faizan Mustafa was the one who came in and who explained the things to the students or the aspirants. Okay, you remember, just chill. So that is something which was there. So if you're talking about something coming from his end, so you should go through it. This is totally a perspective based thing. Here these he's talking about the status of women in our society. Actually, what happened recently, Kamal Hassan's political party, in their manifesto, they declared that they'll recognize the work of women in the house as work, and they'll pay salaries to the women. All right. If this is something which is a discussion, okay, so this is what brought the attention of a lot of people to discuss this thing. Now, what happens here if you talk about this article from Faizan Mustafa? It is very beautifully discussed here, this particular topic, this issue, because a lot of dimensions are included. You can have a look at it. If you talk about the burden on women, then you talk about other judicial observations, then you're talking about a hierarchical structure, then separate spheres, then you're talking about a step and suggestion. So what needs to be done, है ना, क्या होना चाहिए क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, दिस इज समथिंग जो कि बड़ा मल्टी डायमेंशनल मैनर में उन्होंने डिस्कस किया. Now, what is this all about? So let me tell you. This article specifically deals with the status of women in society, and it, yes, actually includes a lot of dimensions here. So, as I told you, an actor and a politician Kamal Hassan, his party in their manifesto for the upcoming elections, they said that they will recognize work of women in house as work, and they will try to give them salary, or they're promising salary to those. Okay, so this is what they say. Now the point is, if we talk about this, what are the what are the status of this particular thing in different states, different countries, how they dealt with this, what is the actual status of women, this should be done or this should not be done, a suggestion for future, this is what is discussed here. Okay, so if we talk about the first point, that is here, and that is the burden on women. Here he's trying to tell that what are the facts relevant to the work of women in the house. There are a lot of facts, there are a lot of research, there are a lot of things that are being discussed, and out of those, some information that I'm telling you. According to the research, a woman spends 299 minutes in a house walking there. All right, walking in the house, 299 minutes. And if you talk about a man, he spends somewhere around 97 minutes. On the other hand, if you talk about the amount of time that is devoted by a woman on caregiving services means what? If she's taking care of the child, she's taking care of the elders, all right? So वो उनके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो she spends 134 minutes in a day to that. And all this thing is unpaid. All this work is not recognized. So this is something that is written here in the second part. If you talk about the other section of it, which talks about the other judicial observations, here in this particular part, he's talking about the contribution of women as housewives. And he's saying that there are a lot of cases where the courts have come up with the opinion that the contribution of women as housewives is invaluable, and we cannot count that in terms of money. We cannot do that. So this is about the recognition of work of women in the house, and the recognition of that work as well. Then he's talking about the hierarchical structure. Here they are talking about what is the status of women and what is the recognition of these kinds of work that a woman performs in a house in different countries. He starts talking about the English common law, and he says that in the English common law there was no recognition of women, and there's no recognition, and there's no provision for women to work in the house or going out of the house. Until 1851, no country in the world had recognized a wife's right in earning of any sort. Right? So what they're saying, they're again saying that in different countries this was there. And he's also saying that surprisingly, in the 7th century, Islamic law clearly mandates husbands to pay their wives, and also entitle them to spend some amount of the husband's salary without the consent of the husband. So on one hand, we are talking about English common law, where there is no recognition. On one hand, we are talking about what is the scenario till 1851. There wasn't any country which had recognized a wife's right in earning of any cost or any sort. All right, and at the same time, you're talking about the Islamic law, which is mandating husband to pay their wives and also entitle them to spend some amount of this without husband's consent. And it was back then in 7th century. But finally, in the like 19th century, American, courts or like American states started reforming the common law of marital status by enacting the Married Women's Property Act. And in that, there are a lot of provisions that were undertaken, like the exemption of wife's real property from the husband's debt. All right, if there is a couple and a husband is in debt, all right, so he'll have to pay the debt. The wife's actual or real property will be kept aside. To recover that debt from the husband, the banks or the person who is seeking for that money cannot go to the wife and acquire the property of the wife. Getting that? So it was certain reform. Now again he's getting back to 1815 now, and he's talking about and he's considering that to be an era of personal labor. Why? Because by then the right to earn by their personal labor was given to the women. So there are a lot of things that are discussed here. If you talk about these, the last point here, that is separate spheres. Here he's talking about the home and the market. So he's saying कि if you talk about the home, it is totally the territory of the women. It is considered that. All right. If you talk about the market, men is perfect for that, and this is what we feel. Okay. So this is the specific relationship in between the home and the market. Now they are saying that the amount of work that the women does in a home is equal to the man does going out of the home. So they should be treated equally at the same time. And if you talk about giving them or paying them salaries for the work they are doing, paying them salaries will make them and convert them into employees, and they will be counted as what, slaves and masters. So there can't be any master and slave relationship in between the husbands and the wives. So we cannot give them salary. This idea of giving them salary, this word salary, is not appropriate according to Faizan Mustafa, and this is his suggestion to this Kamal Hassan party. All right. So there's a lot that can be discussed about this. All right. So I think I've given you a perspective, I've given you an idea, I've given you the thought flow of the author here, so that you can go through the so that you can go through the piece of text, and then after going through the article, you'll understand things. Okay. The next in the row now is relevant to electricity distribution and the problems faced in this field. So what are the issues in this particular thing, electricity distribution? And this is specifically in relevance with the electricity rule which was promulgated in December 2022. All right. हो क्या रहा है यहाँ पे? What are the loopholes when we talk about supplying the electricity to each and every household in our country? What are the schemes and where these are lacking, and why we can't we are unable to deliver in that? Are there things like there are no schemes, there is uh, no structure to work upon? No, there's nothing like that. We have the resources, we have the schemes, but the point is how to work upon creation of the comfortable zone when it comes to execution. So you have the schemes, you have a lot of things to do, you have the plans, but you're lacking in the execution. And what are the things that are there that should be focused upon? And this article deals with information like this. Now, specifically, what happened, let me tell you. If you talk about the issue of supply quality, the point is government cannot go out there and supply the electricity to each and every part of the country. So this is the task that they perform in coordination with the discoms are those companies which takes care of the distribution of the electricity. All right, so what they do is, if you are saying that you are like supplying the electricity in a state, this is something that is happening on the paper. You're saying that we are supplying, like, there is a mention of a report of August 2020 where the minister of where the minister from the central government came and said ki we are supplying 20 hours electricity to all these rural areas. But the point is, in reality it isn't true. Why? Because of the data, that the data of the supply from the discoms, that there is some irregularity in that as well. So the issue of supply quality is relevant to this thing. The second part is lack of accountability. Yes, the point is, this particular electricity rule that fixes this fixes the responsibility on the discoms and distribution companies to provide and supply the electricity, treating rural and urban areas as same. We cannot say it is an urban area so it has to get more electricity, and it is a it is a rural area, so we if we even if we can supply 4 hours electricity to these people, it will do. So without this discrimination, then they are expected to supply the electricity over there. All right, so if we talk about the second thing, lack of accountability, here he's trying to say that it is not that कि हम लोगों के पास कोई schemes नहीं है. It is not that we cannot supply. It is not that we are lacking in something. It is that it is only the lack of accountability. If there is not the enough supply in the areas, in some areas, who is the person who will be held accountable for that irregularity? So we are not fixing the responsibility upon anyone, and that is why these irregularities are there. You're getting what I want to say, right? If you talk about the later part of the of the article, it deals with weakening provisions and need for commitment. So you'll have to identify things, you'll have to gather the data from the NGOs, like the data that are collected from the discoms, that data is flawed, and on the other hand, the data which are collected by some agencies which are autonomous or which are NGOs, all right, that data is also there, and these two things are conflicting. Means, if you are saying that we are supplying 20 hours of electricity in a state or in a rural area, and these NGOs, they collected the data and they get to know that only for 4 hours the electricity is being supplied. So the government has to monitor all these things. That commitment needs to be there. All right. So what you should do is you should collect the data from all the sources that are possible. All right. You should also start collecting the data from these institutions, these organizations which are working there independently. So these independent organizations should also be used as a source of information. Keeping that information in your mind, you can further talk about the way forward. So this needs to be done when we talk about that. Okay, so this was about the editorial page. There's one more article here which deals with the Karnataka Prevention of Slaughter and Preservation of Cattle Ordinance. All right. So this ordinance was there, and it was to put a cap on the cow slaughter. Actually, okay. Now there was this bench which is hearing this case, and during the earlier hearing, they asked the government to clarify the provisions for prosecution. Right. So even if a person who is a farmer who has some cattle, all right, and he is transporting them, so are the is the police going to like catch him and then say he hold him responsible for this, and they will prosecute him under this law? So the government has now clarified that if you are saying that we are transporting the cattle, so we won't disturb you, there won't be any action taken against you. So this is the scenario here. Okay. So this was about this news. If we'll go further, vaccine. All right. So in yesterday's newspaper as well, we discussed about India is going to supply vaccines for to multiple nations. All right. If we talk about Wednesday, so Wednesday we have sent the medicines, we have sent the vaccines to Bhutan and Maldives. Okay, so these were the first two countries which received the doses. Bhutan approximately 1,50,000 doses and 1 lakh doses Maldives. All right. So there's a list. Even Pakistan is also there. So we are anyways going to help a lot of countries to get out of this pandemic. And this is the beauty of our nation. Okay. So this was about the supply of vaccines to different countries. I think if we talk about today's newspaper, this was all that was there you should keep in mind. If we talk about the editorials, I just tried to tell you how you should go through that and what are the different aspects that are to be focused upon while reading that. Okay. Thank you guys. See you in the next session.